It's clear since the fiscal cliff debacle at the end of the year that Uncle Sam's biggest problem is in his wallet. It's been almost 4 years since your federal government had a real budget. There have been some political stunts to make it seem like budgets were failing in Congress, bills put forward for an up or down vote. That is not how the system works. There's never been a budget passed like that, and there probably never will be. It's not how it's designed to work. Christine Romans is the host of Your Bottom Line. Christine, a lot of misinformation out there. Set us straight. If government were working properly, how would we actually get a budget done?
It is a complex process, and it starts with the president. By law, the commander-in-chief is the one who's required to submit a budget proposal to Congress before the first Monday in February, Allie. Since the Constitution grants the power of the purse, though, to Congress, final budget decisions are really up to it. So let's talk about that. Once the proposal gets to Congress, budget committees in the House and the Senate, they work with public officials and other congressional committees to decide on a budget resolution. And that's where it starts to get interesting. The budget resolution serves as a guide for all spending and revenue decisions for the year. At least that's how it's supposed to work, in theory. But none of this, Allie, has happened since 2009.
And we're going to discuss why. Christine, thanks very much. Why don't we have a budget? Gridlock, basically. In fact, Senate Majority Leader Harry Reid, a Democrat, says it was not worth trying to go through the process of passing the president's budget. That's why you hear that old Republican saw that Harry Reid won't even present a budget to the Senate. You may have also heard the oft-repeated claim that President Obama's budget was struck down in the House and the Senate, getting 0 votes, goose eggs from either party. But those bills were not the budget. They were shell versions of the president's budget put forward by Republicans designed to fail. They were not budgets. They were just politics. Republicans did put out their own budget plan in the form of Paul Ryan's Path to Prosperity, but bipartisan bickering resulted in no progress there either. Part of the reason our government has been able to survive without a budget is because of something called continuing resolutions, which are essentially an extension of the existing budget. So it is not true, as many of you enjoy tweeting me, that the U.S. doesn't have a budget. We just haven't had a new one in some years, and that is a bad thing. It's also not true that Obama's budget got no votes, because that wasn't Obama's budget. But the sad truth is that we do not have a budget in the United States, a new one, and there are consequences for that, not the least of which are the dozen or so close calls with government shutdowns in the past few years. We'll probably face another one of those in the coming weeks. Plus, those continuing resolutions, well, they're short-term. They avoid tackling long-term problems like federal debt and the deficits. The uncertainty of that short-term thinking wreaks havoc on businesses and their investment and unemployment. Look no further than the debt ceiling showdown in summer of 2011 that led to the Budget Control Act, which was a last-minute deal to raise the debt ceiling in exchange for automatic cuts that were to take place at the end of 2012. You know those as the sequester, which I've said many times is a stupid name for a stupid thing that only Washington could come up with. Big surprise with those sequester cuts, by the way. Washington gave themselves another extension, 2 more months. So March 1st, America has another cliff to worry about going over. These people are really worse than a fourth grade flunky who, why not just write to your constituents and say, sorry, the dog ate my homework. That mangy dog has become the U.S. political process. Christine Romans is still with me. Christine, you've often said that America's chief export these days seems to be economic uncertainty. Incredibly, that only seems to be getting worse. What's the likelihood of this changing?
Well, I think that when you have all of these mini cliffs ahead of us, and you're going to see a lot of ugly politics, Allie, no question. You're going to see some ugly politics in the next few weeks and months. But this might be capitulation, right? This might be this moment where you're going to see the system thrashing around, getting through this. And the optimist in me says, after that, you're going to have deficit reduction, you're going to have an eye to debts and deficits, and you're going to have a blueprint for what kind of country we're going to be. Because that's what a budget is, right? The budget is the blueprint for what your priorities are, what your vision is for the American standard of living. The continuing budget resolutions, they're not a vision. They're nothing like a vision. So I think that if you can get through this very tortured time over the next maybe 3 to 6 months, maybe after that, we'll start talking about what the vision is going to be for America again.
All right, let's hope you're right.